All right, so in holster retention. Basically the idea here, stay with me, is you don't want them to take your gun from you. And?
I mean, I don't really have anything to add about, here's the thing, it's like everything else. We gotta learn to fight. And if I'm carrying concealed, nobody should know that I have a gun, right? That shouldn't be a thing. But if we're already in a fight, things happen, right? You get brushed up against, maybe they feel it in the fight, maybe clothing gets moved, whatever, the gun is there. And I don't want to introduce the gun if I'm not ready to. So being able to keep it in my holster for whatever moment in time I need is going to be important. So the things that we've worked in kind of some of the skill building and some of the warm-ups and those kinds of things, like the hand fighting and getting the arm drags and the 2-on-1 controls and those kinds of things, that's where all of that is going to come into play in our in-holster retention. Just keeping somebody off of my gun, and then obviously being able to strike and wrestle a little bit as well, using one to kind of set up the other, not making them mutually exclusive. But if I just fixate on locking down on my gun in my holster, again, now I'm going to take a beating while I'm trying to keep that thing in. So I got to be able to do it all. I need to be able to fight, maintain, retain that weapon, and then maybe access it into the fight. But I don't want to do that until I'm ready, because now I'm going to make it easier for them to take the gun if I'm not ready to actually draw it. So keeping it in the holster and being able to fight to keep it in the holster is going to be important. But it's all the basic skills from, we start with warm-ups in this program, the firearm program, with, again, it's basic wrestling and being able to kind of just fight to keep them away from the gun.
There's a lot to be said to having a proper holster and proper positioning for you as well. You made the mention of if you're concealed carrying correctly, they shouldn't know it's there.
Yeah.
Well, North Carolina is an open carry state like other states.
Yes. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. For the most part, I don't want to advertise what my options are. I don't want to let people know that I have this thing. Just from a purely tactical standpoint, if somebody comes into bank, movie theater, restaurant, school, whatever, and they're there to do harm, then it only makes sense that they're going to take out the person that they know is most likely to be able to stop them. And if I'm open carrying, I think I'm target number one, because again, we're playing from behind. I don't know that this guy's here to do harm necessarily, but he can recognize that I'm probably a good guy with a gun on my hip, and he can take me out first. So I would rather not throw all my cards on the table and be able to kind of have options of drawing or not drawing, have options of moving to better positions, those kinds of things. And that stuff gets limited when I'm advertising that I'm carrying. So when we're talking about weapon retention, when we're out of the holster, big thing to understand here is if there's any kind of grabs made to my gun, if it's a semi-automatic, then I run the risk of the gun being put out of battery. So even if I'm able to retain it, even if I'm able to keep a hold of it, it may not be ready to fire. So getting reps in on tapping, racking, charging the weapon, making it ready is going to be important. When it comes to actually retaining it, we want to keep the moves simple, gross motor, kind of the same no matter what angle the grabs are being made from. So when you see us do this kind of work, you'll see us making these same movements with some slight adjustments just based on the position of the attacker, the person trying to take my gun. But it's all the same. It's all based on me being able to use my whole body against the plane of their wrists. So I'm isolating big body sponsorship, big body engagement against small joints. Not trying to just rip the gun away, not trying to overpower the other person, really kind of doing the opposite of that. And then understanding too that I still have a lot of personal weapons on me that I can use to help in this endeavor, right? Like I can still kick, I can still knee, I can still headbutt, I can still punch, I can still elbow, I can still strike with the gun. All of these things are gonna allow me to kind of keep my gun. And so having something that, a retention tool technique that doesn't require a ton of thought, because it's not, okay, well, if they're over here, it's technique number 1. If they're over here, it's technique number 3. If they're over there, it's technique number 7. If they're holding the gun high, if they're holding the gun low, all these things. It's basically the same response to all of those things. So under stress, I don't have to kind of run through that catalog of technical responses. It's more principle based, which is, it's not going to get much more stressful than me having to draw my gun and then somebody grabbing it and me not being able to use it in that moment in time. So the movements that we show from retention out of the holster are, I think, relatively simple. Doesn't mean it'll be easy. I mean, it's a fight, so it's not going to be easy, but it's relatively simple to perform.
There'll be some safety and training issues here where we need to be careful of elbows so that you don't end up high and slamming into your partner's elbows. There's a lot of safety and training really that goes into this.
Here, they're very specific things. Making sure that the thumbs are facing the good guy and those kinds of things. All stuff that are addressed throughout the program. But when it comes to just the actual retention part, the big thing is I'm in a fight and I've got a gun. I need to keep my gun, need to move to better positions, need to be able to hit where needed, need to be able to charge my weapon once I've made it mine again, so I don't have just this blunt object paperweight. Because one of the worst things is going to be to go through this fight, get my gun back, pull the trigger and it go click because it's out of battery now, or the mag got dropped out or something.
Hey, can I get the time from you?
Yeah, it's 12:15.
Actually, don't give me your phone.
Hey, yeah.
Blah, blah. Blood.
That's right. That's what happens when you take my phone.